The intermediate state, Bardo, 49 days after death in Tibetan Buddhism. When a person leaves this world, many believe that everything has ended. But in Tibetan Buddhist teachings, death is only like stepping through a door where another journey begins. The word Bardo means in between, an intermediate state, not a physical existence, but not yet a new life either. This is the intermediate body, a journey lasting 49 days after death, during which consciousness wanders, experiencing both wondrous and challenging realms before finding a place of rebirth. The Tibetan Book of the Dead calls this the great liberation through hearing in the Bardo, a mystical treasure transmitted by tantric masters. It describes in detail what consciousness will face: the dazzling light of ultimate reality, the appearance of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and terrifying images of wrathful deities, all of which are nothing other than reflections of one's own mind. Bardo is not a fantasy, but a mirror reflecting karma and the life one has lived. The meaning of Bardo. Bar means in between, and do means island or phase. Thus, Bardo does not occur only after death. In life, every dream, every meditative state, every pause between two thoughts is a form of Bardo. Yet the post-death Bardo is particularly important because it determines the continuation of the stream of consciousness. Tibetan Buddhism teaches that in the Bardo, what appears is not an external objective world, but the projections of the mind itself. If in life one has cultivated greed, hatred, and delusion, the Bardo visions will be frightening, like realms of hell or hungry ghosts. If one has cultivated love and mindfulness, the Bardo will appear in radiant light with the guidance of Buddhas, bringing one closer to liberation. The 49-day journey in the Bardo. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the entire process after leaving the body is clearly described so that the living may recite prayers for the departed. For in the Bardo, consciousness still perceives, hears, and feels, yet cannot find direction by itself. The voice of a teacher or a faithful relative becomes a guiding thread leading consciousness through the darkness of ignorance. At the moment the last breath stops, consciousness departs from the body. This is a decisive moment. The mind faces the radiant, clear light, the pure, empty, and luminous nature of awareness itself. This is nirvana, the dharmakaya, the ultimate truth. If consciousness recognizes this as its own true nature, liberation is instantaneous, and there is no further rebirth. But most people lack such awakening. We cling to the self, and when confronted with the vast, boundless, empty light, we feel fear because there is nothing to grasp. That fear drives consciousness away from the light into subsequent realms. For this reason, the Tibetan Book of the Dead is read immediately after death, reminding the consciousness, do not fear. Look directly into that light. It is your own mind, your own Buddha nature. When union with the clear light is missed, consciousness enters the stage of visionary phenomena. Here, over 14 days, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 5 directions appear, radiating brilliant lights. Each day brings forth one Buddha, one color of light, one wisdom. Day 1, Buddha Vairocana appears, with white light as pure as the sky. Day 2, Buddha Vajrasattva appears, with blue light sparkling like space. Day 3, Buddha Ratnasambhava appears, with golden light. Day 4, Buddha Amitabha appears, with red light. Day 5, Buddha Amoghasiddhi appears, with green light. Each light represents the 5 wisdoms of the Buddhas, the 5 aspects of enlightenment inherent in every mind. Yet consciousness often fears these dazzling lights, as they are too radiant, too overwhelming. At the same time, dimmer lights of the 6 realms appear: gray for hell, dark blue for hungry ghosts, pale yellow for animals, dull green for asuras, faint red for humans, and dim white for heavenly beings. Consciousness usually chooses the softer lights, finding them more comfortable, yet these are the paths leading back into samsara. If one has the wisdom to recognize that the radiant lights are the very essence of Buddha nature, and the Buddhas are manifestations of one's own mind, liberation is possible. If not, consciousness continues to drift. After 14 days, terrifying visions arise, wrathful deities with fierce faces, weapons, and terrifying sounds. These are not demons from outside, but the repressed energies of our own mind: anger, desire, greed. If recognized as dharmakaya, as Buddha nature, liberation is immediate. But usually, fear prevails, and one flees, thereby being swept deeper into karmic forces. After these mental phenomena, consciousness enters the stage of rebirth. At this point, karma strongly takes hold. Like iron drawn to a magnet, the good and bad actions of one's life pull the consciousness into a corresponding realm. In this stage, signs of a new life appear, voices calling, visions of a new world. Out of ignorance, consciousness is drawn, grasping or rejecting, and immediately enters a womb, beginning a new cycle of existence. The entire process lasts up to 49 days. Some may reincarnate instantly, like a passing breeze. Others drift for the full 7 weeks, encountering various experiences until karma ripens and rebirth occurs. This is why during these 49 days, families and communities often hold prayers, chanting, and dedicating merit to help the departed have a peaceful journey. Practices for the living preparing for the Bardo. Tibetan Buddhism emphasizes, there is no preparation more important than preparation for death. Death will certainly come, no one can avoid it. And that very moment will determine whether we continue to wander in samsara or find freedom. Therefore, an entire life of practice is essentially training to enter the Bardo with awareness. 1. Contemplating impermanence, learning to let go. Each day, when we see a leaf fall, we are reminded that nothing lasts forever. Every breath passing by is also a lesson in impermanence. A practitioner contemplates impermanence to loosen attachment to the self, to the body, to possessions. When death arrives, if the mind is already familiar with impermanence, there will be no panic, no desperate clinging to body, wealth, or fame. Thus, the mind can more easily recognize the light in the Bardo. 2. Meditation and mindfulness, becoming familiar with the true mind. In everyday life, when we sit quietly, breathe mindfully, and watch thoughts pass by without clinging, we are practicing familiarity with the clear nature of mind. This very state will appear in the Chikai Bardo, the fundamental clear light. If we are accustomed to it now, we will recognize it at death. If never practiced, it will be too strange, and we may miss the chance. Meditation, therefore, is not only for stress relief, but rehearsal for the moment of dying. In Vajrayana, many practitioners even train in Phawa, the transference of consciousness, to direct the mind toward the Pure Land at the moment of departure. 3. Cultivating compassion, planting virtuous seeds as guides. Karma is the main factor that leads us to rebirth. Thus, accumulating wholesome karma in life is the best preparation for the Bardo. Each time we give rise to compassion, help someone, or forgive a mistake, we are planting seeds of light. In the Bardo, these seeds will manifest as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas supporting us. Conversely, seeds of anger, greed, and jealousy will appear as wrathful deities and terrifying visions. 4. Chanting sutras, reciting the Buddha's name, and mantra practice, sowing the sound of liberation. Sound has a special power in Vajrayana. Mantras like Om Mani Padme Hum are vibrations of enlightened mind. When we recite them in life, their energy imprints deeply on consciousness. At death, these sounds become guiding threads that lead the spirit out of darkness. This is why, when someone passes away, families often invite a lama or recite prayers beside them, so that the sacred sound reminds the consciousness of Buddha nature and prevents it from straying in the Bardo. 5. The role of relatives. During the 49 days, the deceased no longer has a body, but the consciousness is still present, sensitive, and easily influenced. Excessive grief and attachment from relatives can make the consciousness cling and fail to move on. On the other hand, if loved ones maintain peace, dedicate merit, chant, and pray, they create light that supports the soul on its journey. Each of the 7 weeks has special meaning. This is why in many cultures, memorial ceremonies last or are repeated weekly during the 49 days. It is not mere superstition, but recognition that during this period, consciousness is still journeying, and the love and practice of the living can have a positive effect. 6. Living mindfully, preparing for death right now. All practices converge on one point: living mindfully in the present. If today we live heedlessly, chasing desire and anger, the Bardo will only reflect what we have lived. If today we live in compassion, letting go, and mindfulness, the Bardo will likewise shine with that very light. Thus, preparing for the Bardo is not something to wait for until death, but is the way we live each day. A peaceful passing belongs only to one who has lived peacefully. Comparative perspectives, near-death experiences. Many people who have undergone clinical death recount extraordinary experiences, floating out of the body, watching doctors working on them, seeing a light at the end of a tunnel, even meeting deceased relatives. Such accounts appear across cultures and religions worldwide. Interestingly, these phenomena closely resemble descriptions in the Tibetan Book of the Dead: dazzling light, a sense of flight, encounters with sacred images, then returning to the body. Science calls this NDE, near-death experience, but has yet to fully explain it. Tibetan Buddhism regards this as the Chikai Bardo, the moment consciousness departs and perceives the fundamental light. Other religious traditions? In Christianity, it is believed that after death, the soul goes to heaven or hell depending on faith and deeds. Though it does not speak of Bardo, the idea of purgatory is somewhat similar to the intermediate state, where the soul is purified before entering heaven. In Hinduism, there is a strong belief in rebirth and karma, closely aligned with Buddhist ideas. In Chinese Taoism, there's also the concept of 7 sevens, 49 days, and rituals for guiding the dead, similar to Tibetan Buddhist practices. Such parallels suggest that many traditions intuitively recognize that death is not the end but a transitional journey. Scientific and neurological views. Modern scientists studying the brain during near-death moments have found that even when the heart stops, the brain remains active briefly. There are powerful electrical discharges in the nervous system, creating sensations of bright light and vivid images. This partly explains NDE phenomena, yet some cases go beyond science. People describe exact details of surgery rooms while clinically dead, something the brain should not be able to fabricate. This has led some scientists to admit that consciousness may exist independently of the body, precisely what Buddhism has taught for thousands of years. Mind does not die with the body, it continues its flow through the Bardo. Bardo as a psychological map. From a modern psychological lens, the Bardo can be seen as a map of the subconscious. Brilliant lights, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas symbolize compassion and wisdom seeds cultivated within. Wrathful deities symbolize the shadow side, repressed energies, anger, and desire. At death, the ego's defenses collapse, and the deepest layers of the unconscious surface. Thus, the Bardo is not an external world, but a stage of the mind where everything is revealed. Meeting of tradition and modernity. Today, many medical centers, especially those researching palliative care, have begun incorporating meditation, chanting, and spiritual practices to help the dying. They recognize that the calmness of mind at death greatly affects the quality of one's passing. This is the very spirit of the Bardo, preparing for death with mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. Whatever explanation science may give, death remains a mystery. But above all, the teachings on Bardo offer humanity comfort. Death is not the end, but a continuation of the journey. The meaning of Bardo teachings for life. Bardo reminds us of impermanence. We often live as if death is far away, but the truth is that it can come at any moment. The teaching of Bardo reminds us that death is not a rare event, but a natural part of life. When we realize this, we become less greedy, less angry, less attached to vain pursuits. We learn to live simply, deeply, and with gratitude for every breath. Every moment is itself a kind of Bardo, between an in-breath and an out-breath, between one thought and the next. If we are mindful, then even in the Bardo of the present moment, we can already glimpse freedom. A peaceful death belongs only to one who has lived peacefully. Many people wait until their last moments to turn to practice or prayer, but the Bardo reflects exactly the life we have lived. If throughout life we only accumulated anger and greed, then the Bardo will appear with wrathful, terrifying images. If throughout life we planted seeds of compassion and contemplated impermanence, then the Bardo will appear in radiant light with Buddhas. Thus, preparing for death is nothing other than how we live today. The one who lives mindfully and peacefully in even the smallest acts will have a gentle death, and that death opens into a new life filled with light. Letting go, all suffering arises from clinging. When we see the light, we become afraid and turn away because we are not familiar with its vastness. When wrathful images appear, we panic, not recognizing them as our own mind. When visions of parents in union appear, desire arises, and we enter a womb. All of this happens because we cannot let go. If we know how to release and stop clinging, then at the very moment of death, we can merge with the fundamental light. That is liberation. Thus, studying Bardo is learning the art of letting go. Letting go of the past, letting go of anger, letting go of desire, so we may live lightly. Love, the bridge that crosses death. In the Bardo, the seeds of compassion and love manifest as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who support us. This reminds us that nothing is more important than living with love. Not money, not fame, but kindness, forgiveness, and sharing are what follow us beyond the door of death. For loved ones, the 49 days after death are not a time for despair, but an opportunity to send love and peaceful energy to the consciousness of the departed. The prayers and serenity of the living become the lamp that lights the path of the dead. Bardo as a mirror of life. Through the Bardo, we see clearly the law of cause and effect, the working of karma. Death is not an end, but a continuation of the life we have lived. It is like one waking from a dream only to enter another, and whether that dream is beautiful or painful depends entirely on the mental habits cultivated in life. Bardo is the most truthful reflection of human consciousness. Everything we encounter in the 49 days after death, radiant lights, peaceful Buddhas, or wrathful deities, does not come from outside, but from the seeds we have sown in our lifetime. If we have lived chasing desire, greed, and anger, the Bardo becomes an endless nightmare. If we have planted love and nurtured mindfulness, the Bardo becomes a journey of light, opening the possibility of liberation. The teaching of Bardo reveals a simple truth. How we die depends entirely on how we live. A serene death is the reward for a serene life. Therefore, instead of fearing death, let us learn to live fully here and now. Let each day be a small Bardo, where we practice letting go, recognizing the light, and looking directly into our own mind. And so, death is not the end. It is merely a door opening onto another journey, like a river continuing its flow, never stopping. Understanding this, we are no longer overwhelmed by grief at loss, nor excessively clinging to the present. We learn to smile at impermanence and remain at peace amidst change. Looking deeply, we see, preparing for death is no different from preparing for life. To live mindfully is the best preparation to die mindfully. The Bardo is not just the 49 days after death. It is right here, in every moment we live. So the real question is not, where will I go after death? But, in this very moment, what seeds am I planting in my mind? If we plant light, we will meet light. If we plant darkness, we will meet darkness. And if we plant compassion and wisdom, then both life and death become but two sides of the same journey toward liberation.